Welcome to the Power 365 show. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/244. Before we start with today's guest, here's a quick message from our sponsors. Well, today's show is brought to you by me. If you want to go to the next level in your career or business and need someone that has been there and done that, I'm talking about in Microsoft business applications, consider talking to me and taking me on as your coach. You can express your interest at nz365guy.com/coaching. I'll get back in touch with you and we will take it from there. Drum roll, please, because normally at this point I would introduce the show, but today I'm going to let our guest do it.
Now let's get on with the show.
Today's guest is from Ashburn, Virginia in the United States. He's the Principal Program Manager at Microsoft Power Platform Customer Advisory Team. You might have heard it as CAT. Formerly, he was a Microsoft MVP for business applications. He describes himself as the king of frivolous Power Apps. You can find him on Twitter at Topness. Welcome to the show, Phil Topness.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Nice to be here.
Good to have you on the show. Thank you for doing the introduction. It's really a pleasure to catch up with you.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do that introduction every time I listen to the podcast, so thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Now, I always love to kind of get some background on my guests before they come on the show. Tell us about Ashburn, Virginia, what you do, what's fun, what's cool, what do you eat, what do you do with your family when you're not focused on the Power Apps ecosystem?
Sure. Yeah, I live in Northern Virginia, so it's like a suburb of the D.C. suburbs, about an hour outside of Washington, D.C. We moved here about 5 years ago. I live here with my wife, who's a middle school librarian, and my three daughters, two who are juniors at William & Mary College, and one that's a junior in high school. As far as what do we like to do, I like to go hiking. I've been exploring the area, and I've recently just started forcing myself to do so by blocking off a day every month or so. It kind of seems like a life hack, but now it seems really obvious now that I'm talking about it, right? So day comes up my calendar, time to go hiking. And so I've been getting outside a lot more.
I like it.
We did grow up on the west coast of the U.S., though, near the water. And so we still miss the beach, though.
So why did you move?
We moved around. We moved for work. So graduated from college in Seattle. Got a job near the San Francisco area, and then we realized we were never going to be able to afford a house in San Francisco. So my wife and I individually chose somewhere to move, and we both picked Portland, Oregon. It's the only place we've lived that we selected. And then work took us to Germany for a few years, and then when it was time to come back, they said, move near D.C. or move near an airport. So we did both. We're about 15 minutes outside the Dulles.
Wow, yeah. So what did you do in Germany?
Yeah, so the company I was working with was through a series of acquisitions. Started working with Ascentium, which I think is a company you know.
Yeah, totally.
And they were acquired by Avanade and then Accenture, at least the federal business. I was doing work with the U.S. federal government. We had a Dynamics-based product that we kind of sold like an ISV, and is used mainly by the federal government. So I was working with government customers, U.S. government customers in Germany and around Europe.
So I'm going to digress slightly. Ascentium, a lot of the folks in Ascentium in the earlier days were, of course, the founding folks of what we call the Power Platform today, but what was core XRM or Dynamics CRM to start with, or MS CRM back then.
Yeah, it's the truth. Yeah, I've heard about your show.
Yeah. So did you rub shoulders with those folks, or were they before your time, after your time, that type of thing? When and do you think that that impacted or enabled them to grow like they did? I mean, because a phenomenal business, Ascentium.
Yeah, so Ascentium, I was originally in a different part of Ascentium, leading, they were a Microsoft integrator, leading other Microsoft projects, and moved over to the Dynamics side, which was the folks that were acquired in from Invoke Systems that we're talking about, right? Like Aaron Elder and Micro Scenario, and then another 4 hours to build it. And I remember flying in that day thinking, these guys are crazy about CRM. I don't know how everything could be built on CRM. And at the end of the day, right, I had the religion, right? The XRM, I got it. Because in 4 hours, we were able to build a real system that was functional, right, and secure and all that. So Aaron Elder trained us in that session. Yeah, so we got to learn from some of the best.
Wow, that is awesome. And for those listening, if you want to catch up, there is a interview with Aaron Elder that you can see in my back catalog there, who was one of those early guys on the whole project. Tell me, so did you go through then the transition into Accenture Avanade as part of that?
Yes, yeah. While I was in Germany, worked for all the companies, so different business cards. They all started with an A.
Yeah.
So actually, I was kind of isolated versus the people back in the U.S. that were going through it, or people that were principals in Ascentium, right, who had more on the line than I did.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey into technology. Why did you even start? What took you bent? Was it something in your teenage years? What got you in your journey to the technology?
Well, as I mentioned, so I grew up in Seattle, went to the University of Washington, and I started at University of Washington with one goal. I was trying to avoid math.
Okay.
And so from there, I ended up studying chemical engineering, which I think is probably emblematic of my whole career, just chasing whatever I thought was interesting at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was during that. I remember it was a spring day in my junior year, and you've been to Seattle, spring in Seattle is like nowhere else, right? You have 250 days of cloud and rain, and then when the sun comes out, everything stops. It's like a Friday afternoon. It's a spring day. It's beautiful outside. And I remember my professor were talking about surface chemistry, and he says, "And that's the miracle of detergent." And I thought, it's soap. What am I doing here? And so I spent the next year kind of pivoting into computers. And my first job out of college was working at a refinery on gasoline blending, which sounds very boring, but it was fascinating. Really interesting computer problem.
So growing up there in Seattle, how big a feature does in people's mindsets does Microsoft, Boeing, and Amazon play, and I mean, I know Starbucks is from there as well. And what's the big travel agency? The travel aggregator.
Expedia?
Expedia. These are big companies that are well-known brands around the world. Growing up in that kind of tech hub, did that kind of permeate Joe Blogs on the street? Was that kind of prevalent, those brands in town and what those organizations meant?
When I was there, and I won't say how long ago, but it was a while ago, it was more of a manufacturing town, right? Boeing was really the big industry. Mm-hmm. And it was after that you really see Amazon come onto the scene, and the rise of Microsoft and the real kind of growth. And so I think it had a little different vibe when I lived there, because I've been out since the mid 90s, right?
Yeah,
and living elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a changed city, as in the most recent time I was there. Prices have gone through the roof. It's starting to emulate San Fran in a way, which is it's very hard for I suppose a lot of locals that are not in the tech sector to even stay on parity living wise in that city now.
I'm sure. I know when we were living in San Francisco, my wife's a teacher, and I was a couple years out of school. There was no way the math would work. Our rent was the longest rent we could get was a 6-month contract because they wanted to raise the rent every 6 months. Right? It's just impossible.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Tell us about MVP. What was your journey into the MVP world, and how long did it last? And tell us a bit about that.
A bit of a loaded question. Yeah, so I was an MVP for about 5 months. I'm pretty confident that's not the shortest stint, but it's absolutely not the longest.
Yeah.
Because when you go to work for Microsoft, you can no longer be an MVP. So it was just kind of that interim period. But it's still, it was really meaningful to me, because I see it more of a recognition for the work you've done in the past year plus in the community than like a title, right? And so I felt like, getting awarded it. Yeah. I think once you get awarded it, you kind of have that, that recognition, the pride of what you've accomplished. And, then, it's time for me to transition into this role.
Yeah. And it's very much based on what you've done, not what you're going to do. That's why they reassess everybody, for their previous year's activities, right? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. It's, you log, as you know, everything you've done in the past around a year. And so it's definitely a comprehensive way of looking to see how you've really contributed to the community. Yeah, totally. So what's your
magic skills in the BizApp world? Once again, probably a loaded question, but, what did you earn your MVP for? What was your specialty area?
Yeah, so you mentioned that I call myself the king of frivolous power apps. I started getting into Power Apps when I was leading the Dynamics practice at Accenture Federal. And I was trying to find a way to get my team with some of the best Dynamics developers I've seen, trying to get them just kind of up to speed on what was coming. And I was, watching videos, just trying to see, okay, what's coming new on the horizon. And I saw Power Apps, and I was like, come on, right? Everyone's finally getting XRM. At that time we had a new licensing model. Everything was confusing. I thought, why another brand? And I remember really clearly, it was like over 3 years ago. I remember seeing Ryan Cunningham demo a Canvas app, a mobile app that he built in like 10 minutes. Right. And I was learning Swift at the time, trying to build an iOS app.
Yep.
And it just blew me away. And so from there, I started getting, showing it to doing demos for my team and trying to get them kind of know what's coming. And then from there, I started recording them so other people could see them. And then I thought, okay, well, movements are built through Edition. Let's expose it more broadly, and started putting some of these demos on YouTube.
I like it.
And so I guess my special sauce would be, I think all of us, one of the things that's addictive about technology is you spend 8 hours trying to solve a problem and you have that 1 or 2 aha moments.
Yep.
And so I tried to distill demos down so that I could get 5 or 10 minutes of only aha moments. I think that's probably my special skill.
That's cool. That's a cool way of thinking about it. Tell me, one thing in running a practice, and it's something that I've had a bit of experience across my career in doing, and what I noticed, particularly last year, when I started being involved in a lot of the hackathons in the UK, is that a bunch of consultants would come in from the various partners that were very, shall we say, dynamics-centric. Their entire career, the last 5-7 more years, had been very dynamics-focused. Yeah. And then along come, Power Apps, or more importantly, let's separate down to CDS, and the ability to build any type of app on the platform, but their default thing was, are we going to start with sales, customer service? Right. What's our starting point? And I would be like, well, hang on a second. Do you not realize the starting point is actually CDS?
Yeah.
And build your data model, put it on CDS, and then build up your interface layers. And of course, a bit different than Canvas apps, but I'm talking about that type of fundamental thinking change. And I'm still encountering it all the time, people that have that legacy. So how did you start pivoting your teams to start thinking, what we were sold back in 2003, which is you could build anything on the platform. Remember the video back then, whether it be dog management or cloud management.
Right.
You can build anything on the platform, yeah. And I remember taking that information and building a full payroll system inside Dynamics Sales, which in hindsight was the stupidest thing I could have done. But the client loved it. I automated 3 roles within the business and inside that company by doing it. But what a mission to maintain the code base behind a full payroll system that had to be legally compliant. That really did show the power of it. And now CDS more than ever gives you, a platform and the Power Platform with all the tooling to really build any type of app that your mind can conceive. How did you take your team in the practice on that journey of rethinking their understanding of Microsoft business applications and the way to particularly create new apps without necessary Dynamics 365 dependencies?
I think in that particular case, we had an advantage because we were doing apps for the federal government. So they weren't sales, right? And they weren't like a typical CRM. So we were really using it as a platform. So we were kind of already in that space. But I've absolutely seen what you're describing, like even with the community, right? For a while, it was the best Dynamics developers were the most resistant to switch from workflows to Flow. Or to even switch into, to explore some of the other capabilities. And I think that's changed in the last year or so. And even I found that, like, even for the projects we did, right? Even as we updated from versions CRM 4 to 2011 to 2013, it was our best users and our biggest fans that would complain the loudest because you get so good at what you know and change is hard.
Yeah. I mean, even between CRM 2011 and the versions that came up with it, there was often a mindset I'd come against that they were stuck in the 2011 way of doing things. And I'm thinking of things like, not using back then dialogues and using the ribbon or the business process flow. And for so many, they just struggled with learning something that, in hindsight is very simple, relatively simple and flexible. And yet they just, stuck in that old way of thinking.
Although the people that held out on tabs got their last laugh. Right,
because they came back. Yeah. Don't get me started on naming conventions and how things lay out, especially with the new Project Oakdale and stuff. And by the way, let's not go down there because I don't want you talking out of school. Can you tell me about the transition then? Because 5 months you become an MVP, and all of a sudden, obviously, a contract was put across your desk, and you move into Microsoft. How did that journey come about? How did it happen for you?
Yeah, for me, it was, when you get involved in the community, you get active with the community, you start interacting with Microsoft. And from being in the industry for a while, you sell with Microsoft and you work with Microsoft engineers.
Totally.
So, I already had a lot of those relationships. And so for me, it was a chance to go from, working all the aspects of a practice to being 100% focused on this technology and making this technology successful, right? It's kind of like, going from being the lone zealot, preaching about this technology to be, among the converted.
Yeah.
And so it's been a terrific experience, and being able to see behind the scenes too, and see what really happens, some of the decisions that are made. It's impressive for such a big organization. It's so customer focused and really hungry for what's going to make the customer most successful and implement.
Yeah. I feel it's more of a modern phenomenon within Microsoft, as in, from those Satya years of him taking over and that customer obsession, coming into play. So tell me about what your role is now. What's, a lot of people see the word cat, out in the market and
Get a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah, the Wicked As logo, of course. I remember the first time I think I saw Sarab with the shirt on, and I was like, "Wow, that looks cool." Tell me about Tell me about what the Cats team's role is. What do you do, and what part do you play in the game?
Yeah, the Power Cat team, the Power Apps customer advisory team. It's a pretty small team. We're part of engineering. And one way to think about it is you think, okay, so Power Apps is a new, rapidly changing, emerging technology, right? We've talked about how hard change can be from technology you're so good at. And so really what we try to do is we try to be those change agents in organizations that have made a large investment in this technology. And so we work post-sales with customers, global customers, large enterprises that have made a pretty decent investment in Power Apps, Power Platform. And these are organizations that are, we're usually good with technology, but they don't know this technology because not a lot of people out there know this technology yet. And so we help them try to make that transition and accelerate getting successful in this. So that's things like helping them with admin and governance, right? How do I control this platform? Who gets exceptions? How should I use the measuring and monitoring to control it? And nurture, right? How do I help people across the organization learn it and excel at it and find those pockets of expertise and magnify them?
I like it. So that's all part of the COE, right? Is really sits within that package of thinking.
The COE toolkit definitely embodies like so much that we've learned, and it's constantly growing as Oakdale comes on and things like virtual agents get added in. And has a lot of tools to automate that. But it's also a lot about the processes, right? Our goal is to help make sure that these large organizations, they've been doing this just with different technology, and so we don't want to reinvent their processes if we can integrate with them.
Yeah, makes sense. So does are you just focused on the Power Apps, or is it like, for example, customer insights? Does that fall within your team as well to onboard and get those customers that are looking at a CDP as part of their organization?
Customer insights doesn't fall in this. So within Power Cat, we have a few teams, right? There's Power Apps, which is the team I'm on. There's 2 Power Apps teams. And then you had Kent on the show a little while ago, right? There's Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents. And then there's also the community team. So, people that I'm sure you've definitely heard of Charles Sterling, Brian Dang, John Levesque.
Totally.
And you've had Samir on as well, right? Talking about community and, building the stories and the champions as well as the Power Apps community itself.
So there must be a separate CAT team then that deals with that, because it's something that's coming on my radar at the moment. And I know that CAT team helps a lot with implementation of POCs with customers.
I imagine there is. Yeah, I know Customer Insights is taking off like crazy.
Yeah. The more I get into it, the more I love it.
It seems like magic.
Amazing bit of tech. So tell me about, in your role in going in there, what are the moving parts that you're seeing that are really engaging customers, that customers are getting that aha moment when they move from one or two apps inside their business to going, you know what? This is it is a platform play. It is something that we can take those hundreds of apps and move over. I remember early days in New Orleans, I was at a conference, Microsoft conference, and it was the state health body. A gentleman came in and presented on a audit they'd done of their agency, and they had something like close to 300 applications that were legacy, being built up over time. And for each of those, there was a compliance cost, there was an ongoing training cost, there was ongoing maintenance fees. There was a massive list of ongoing baggage with that. And they had at that point decided to, go the XRM route, which is now a Power Platform route, and systematically re-platform all these apps. They identified 109 of them from memory that they could re-platform and come across to Microsoft. And so it was a journey, right? It was not we're going to be done by Christmas. This is going to be a 3-year journey for us as these things end of life. And of course, they created a common interface, common theme, etc. So their ongoing costs with staff change. Are you seeing that now, with the Power Platform and those light bulb moments where companies go from one or two, skunk work, shadow IT doing something to them going, wow, actually, this is going to be a company-wide strategy. It's going to make us more competitive moving forward, more agile, things like that. What are you seeing?
Yeah, of course we're seeing that, right? And we see it in a couple different ways. We see it with like IT shops formally taking on Power Apps. I'm working with one organization, and they've got a very mature custom Angular custom app development. And we did a pilot against Canvas apps and found it was better performing, right? And they can build them more quickly. But also we see, of course, the groundswell, right, of all the activity happening as people discover it, because everyone has Office 365, right? You go up to the menu, the waffle at the top, and sure enough, it's there. And so between that and Oakdale, we just see this groundswell of people adopting it. And then from an enterprise perspective, the fact that everything is audited, the fact that you can control the use of it with data loss prevention, it gives a lot more capabilities, as you know, than, the Excel and Access and Lotus Notes and all the other stuff that, is kind of the old guard.
Yeah. Are you still seeing Lotus Notes out there?
Yeah. I was a Lotus Notes administrator many, many years ago, and I've heard about it 4 times this year.
Wow, that's incredible. I think it's
right?
three years since, and, mine was always in federal government in Australia that I'd come across it. But yeah, not since then. So,
the original low-code platform. You have to respect it, Mark.
Wow, it was a bit of work. Yeah. So tell me, what does your day-to-day involve?
Yeah, so the day-to-day is mostly customer meetings. And so it depends on kind of where the customer is. But, some of it will be focused on like architecture for an enterprise scale apps and helping them understand how to build better performing apps or leverage like the common data service and understand the security model, right? The first time you pick it up, it can be a lot, right? It does a lot, but it's also a lot to learn. Or helping them set up the COE toolkit, as you mentioned, right? The COE starter kit, and really understanding the controls. And on the admin and governance side, right, it's such a big topic and it's kind of amorphous, but, just like you're going to set up some common policies, but there's always going to be exceptions. What is your process for managing that? What are you going to allow? Who makes the decisions? And just kind of helping them navigate that and understanding how they do it for other technologies so that we can try to align this as well.
And so bringing you in on those deals, are they typically specialists from around the globe, TSs, GBBs? Who, at which point do they go, we need the CAT team involved in this and bring your experience to play?
In most cases, we get involved after the deal is already done, right? So the folks you talked about are all on the sales side. And so then once the customer, pre-sales. And so once the customer is already bought, right? Cat's a very small team, the Power Cat team. And so, and with the level of demand we're seeing for Power Platform right now, we really focus on those customers that are ready, right? So we're not trying to persuade them to really use the platform they already bought, but when they're ready, our goal is kind of like I described with those videos, right? You've got 8 hours of playing around, you get 2 moments of that's amazing.
Yeah.
We're trying to push them to, so that they don't have to do that discovery on their own. So we could say, no, here's what you want to do. Right? This is amazing.
And so tell me about some of the successes that, of course, we don't need to mention the company names, but maybe the industries that you're seeing, that wide-scale adoption.
Well, I think it's one of the coolest things about this job, too, because before I did a lot of federal government work, and here I have a couple federal organizations, but the companies are around the globe. I mean, personally, I've got a company that's in manufacturing, one that's in retail, one that's in healthcare, one that's in finance, a couple in federal. And from talking with the team, too, because we all coordinate on kind of what other organizations are doing so we can share enterprise best practices, right?
Yeah.
It's all over the map. And so it's a really, it's all about the same technology, but the business context is always different.
And has that changed particularly this year? As in, I know you've come in early at the start of this year, but I don't know if you had a pre-COVID experience and then post, or mid-COVID experience, but the world's absolutely changed from Satya said himself, we've experienced in 2 months, 2 years of digital transformation in a lot of companies. And, I think Microsoft Teams particularly is a testament to how we've seen a product transform, this year from a R&D product development perspective. What are you seeing then happen with customers that find themselves traditionally in a building-bound employment type environment that all of a sudden say to their staff, work from home, but oh my gosh, we really weren't set up. And it's simple things like, people can have high-speed internet into their premise and they can have low-speed out of their premise because, hey, normally everything's, traveling around the LAN, and therefore there's no implications of file transfers up and out of the organization. That all changes in this world. If you're not in the cloud, right, you have to maintain a whole different level of technology if you're going to allow staff to work remotely but keep tech on-prem.
And I think you mentioned Project Oakdale, right? Power Apps and Teams. I think I mentioned earlier like how insanely customer obsessed this organization is, and every business says that. And I probably sound like I'm just the new guy who's sold on this, but I think that's a good example, right? Like in April or May, that project didn't exist.
Yeah.
And then in a few months, right, this all comes together to basically, satisfy that need that you're describing, right? Everyone's living on Teams. How do we make sure that their apps can go with them there? Yeah. But in general, we are seeing, and you've probably heard, right, Microsoft's revenue for Power Platform went up 5x last year, right? Yeah. So I think that's a big sign of the level of kind of movement towards cloud technology. And plus with things like the on-premise data gateway, right, you can still connect to your on-prem data, and so you can build like a mobile app on top of it pretty quickly and kind of get some of the benefits without having to lift everything and have a 1-year project, right? You can get benefits really quickly.
Yeah, I think I saw that it's a $3 billion business now. The analysts were saying this biz app division. So some serious chops now developed, within the business. Of course, it's growing a heck of a lot. With Oakdale, tell me, and this might be just, I'm not asking for stats and numbers, I'm just more gut feel. Are you seeing, people self-discovering Oakdale within their Teams tenant more than just going out there, or do you not have a bead on there yet because it's too early days?
I know from the customers I talked to even today, we're seeing a lot of Oakdale environments popping up, and also a lot of use of, there were some starter apps there that were really like well-designed starter apps and kind of, asset inventory and those kind of things that businesses need. And so, we're seeing a lot of use of those as well. But, what I'm personally seeing is still a lot of discovery, right? And people trying to understand, okay, what is this new capability and how do I use it? But definitely seeing a lot of activity on Oakdale.
Excellent. What are you thinking? And once again, bit of blue sky thinking of the next 18 months. What is your feel for the growth in the technology area. And what advice would you have for, if people are consulting in this industry and even, like as we talked earlier on, very focused on or come from a background of dynamics and really haven't actively pursued the Canvas side of the house for one, and maybe even Oakdale and Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents. What's your thinking going forward, and what's your advice to these crew?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially that it is growing so fast, and the community is growing, but there still aren't enough experts for this industry. Right? So my advice is to dig in. It will not take you very long to become effectively an expert in this growing organization, right? So you just, and I personally think the technology is amazing. I think, playing around with it, you will get those aha moments right away. And, you mentioned like this shift to the cloud, it's happening right now. And the fact that anyone that has Office 365 already has this technology. And so if you're a consultant, it's to your benefit to be familiar with it. Otherwise, you could be proposing something that is 2 years ago technology, and your customer will say, no, actually, we can do it really easily with Power Automate or Power Virtual Agents, right? And so you want to make sure that you're leading the thought and not responding to what your customer is discovering. Yeah,
totally on the money. Is there anything else you want to leave with the audience? We're going to get on to some quickfire questions. And
I'm terrified of quickfire questions.
I'm really keen to, if there's any, go do now, go check this out, take action now. What would that be?
Yeah, I think the Power Apps community is an incredible resource. I think it takes 24 hours for something to get responded to in there, and they're usually resolved in 48 hours. It's an incredible resource, right? So everybody, this technology is changing under our feet, and so everybody's learning it. So don't be shy to go ask questions in there and learn from it or search from it. The answers are usually in there, and just make sure that you make your voice heard, right? The product team really listens to it. That they will change direction based upon what the community is saying. And, we have a group of champions as well. And I've seen the champions are people that are identified in telemetry as, high users within their organization. I've seen a champion raise a question, and in a couple hours, we have the developer that worked on that feature connecting with them and solving their problem, right? So don't be shy. Make sure that your voice is heard. And if, you mentioned resources, anyone that wants to learn, learn.microsoft.com is growing quickly. So if you're just brand new to it, that will roll you into it and get you familiar with the platform. You mentioned Sara, who runs the PowerCat team. He maintains a page at aka.ms Power Apps Resources. It is the list of all the places you can go to learn more. If you want to learn it, it is there.
Awesome. We'll make sure that's in the show notes.
And our team has kind of a 200 to 300 level series of training. It's the Power Platform Architecture series, and I'll give you the link to that. It's PP Arc series, aka.ms PP Arc series. Awesome.
Okay, final question before we go to Quickfire. What's the most frivolous app you've created?
It's got to be the Pancake and Milkshake app. It was in the trailer of Wreck-It Ralph 2. And I was like, yeah, okay, that could be a Power app, right? And so it got me. It was really a passion project. I lost sleep over that, but it. It's got me deep into animation and using the timer and all that.
Awesome.
But it's completely worthless. And I bet the total playtime on that app is far, far less than the time I spent building. I mean, it's got to
be. Have you seen, do you know Scott Doerr?
Yes, yeah.
Have you seen the Lemmings app he's created?
I saw it. It's amazing. Yeah.
Isn't that so cool? Someone's already asked for Worms, which of course is in that similar genre from back in the day.
Yeah, he said no PCF. It's incredible.
Yeah, I know. And he is a PCF guru. So
right, yeah. So I thought, certainly I was just all custom. But no, it's amazing.
Nah, epic. Absolutely epic. Alrighty, let's get some quickfire questions at you. Here we go. Tell me about a prank that went horribly wrong.
Oh, man. That went horribly wrong. I can't think of it. I can't think of anything horribly wrong. I remember when I was young, my dad always did the same sequence of things when he got home. And so I had something prank him, like I had something fall on him and I had him trip over something. I got him like 5 things in a row. I think that was actually it was a great success. I can't think of anything that went horribly wrong.
I like it. Fast forward 20 years. What does life, not necessarily your life, but what does life or the world we know it look like? Do you reckon?
Oh, man, that's hard to imagine now. I can't
20 years is a long way out, right? 20 years is a long way out.
Yeah, I'm 20 years we'll certainly have them. I'm banking on self-driving cars like really taking off.
Fully. Yep.
I mean, I fantasize about this when I'm sitting in traffic. So if we could get flying cars even, I mean, that alone would do it for me.
Will we be immortal by then?
Ooh.
So we have the choice whether we carry on living.
Yeah. I don't think so. And I think maybe we probably shouldn't. That's a deep question there, though.
Science is interesting, isn't it? Very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, statistically, most of us only die because of some form of disease, as in our body breaks down with old age, which is disease-led. But, you know, who knows where medicine will go. And
the fact that we have the human genome map now, which is amazing, right? It definitely, in 20 years, you could see that we could finally do something with that data. And it does seem viable.
It would be very interesting. Where are you playing it too safe? Now, that's a hard one.
Oh, where am I playing it too safe?
I hope you don't have an existential crisis after these.
I don't know. I think I'm pretty, we're staying home a lot because of COVID.
Fair enough.
But I can't think of, just start a new job. That's a little bit of reaching out there. I can't think of any place I'm playing it too safe. Maybe I'm not introspective enough.
Okay.
Or maybe I don't want to broadcast it.
Yeah. Fair call. It's like one of my questions I ask is, what crime have you committed that you didn't get caught for? I never ask a Microsoft person that question.
I mean, I may have bribed my way through customs in Mexico.
Yes. Yeah.
But I got a receipt and expensed it, so that's probably not right.
Yeah. I've definitely overstayed in countries. But, when you're traveling for a year and particularly Europe, there's kind of this thing called the Shenzhen, and it's like you're in a different country, but collectively some countries allow 90 days and then others allow 30, and it's, And
you can cross the border and not even know it.
No, exactly.
Yeah, no, the Schengen Agreement's amazing.
Yeah. What book has had a profound impact on your life?
Oh, man. The last book I read was really good. It's by Samantha Power, Education of an Idealist. It's just about her life.
Okay.
It's amazing, the stuff that she did and just the risks she took just to pursue it, right? Just, going back to your question of were you playing it too safe, right? She absolutely did not play it too safe. It was a fascinating book, and my daughter's in college right now. We're doing a journalism program, and I'm encouraging them to read it because just the stuff that she did is just really inspirational.
So cool. If you could travel back in time to a point in your life, where would you visit and what would you do?
I would probably go back to college and have more fun than I did.
That's exactly my one too. I think I was caught up in too much of my parents' beliefs to enjoy college as much as what I could have.
Yeah, I was working way too hard, not doing it right, And, I see my daughters in college, they're working their butts off. And I'm like, go have fun. Well, you can't have fun now because they're home right now.
Yeah.
Go and have fun and be social and make the most of it. They do a better job than I did, though.
Nice. Well, Phil, it's been great to have you on the show. You've definitely been the shortest-lived MVP that's been on this show. And, 5 months. I do know of one MVP that lasted, I think, about 6 weeks.
I've heard there's a one-day person out there, but
Is that right? This one got employed by Microsoft Consulting Services, quickly after she became an MVP. So, well done. Thanks for being on the show, and we'll get this published out there soon.
Great to talk to you, Mark. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a Microsoft guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me on LinkedIn. Tell me why you think they would be a great guest to get on the show, particularly maybe a topic area you want me to drill in with them. I'd be happy to do that. Please like and subscribe in your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to leave a review, go to nz365guy.com/review. You can see the reviews that others have left and review the show yourself. Otherwise, wherever you may be in the world, lockdown or not, please stay safe out there. And remember, this too shall pass. See you next time.